Portugal today. I have the opportunity to talk with Ms. Nassim Ebrahimi. I think, nowadays the mental preparation is very, very important in terms of how the athletes will deal with frustrations. So, I like when I lived in Portugal, I had the opportunity to listen to some professors that start to tell me a little bit about mental issues, mental preparations, how to deal with frustrations, and then I start to realize that this is a turning point for the players. So when I saw your profile on LinkedIn, I thought like, whoa, this is a very good opportunity to listen, a different idea or different point of view from a woman. Let's see, I think reflection is very important. Mm-hmm. So thank you for coming on, and I really appreciate the opportunity. Okay.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation. And, it's always great to talk to people, across the world. So you and I are in different time zones, we're across the world, and yet this beautiful game unites us in so many different ways. So it's just an amazing opportunity to learn from each other. And I'm so grateful for the platform.
All right. Thank you. I would like to start, asking you a little bit, because I'm a soccer coach, I'm a futsal and soccer coach, and I start to pay attention from the neck up because of my professor. I was looking for study about neck down, aerobic, anaerobic, strength, conditioning, muscles, preparation. And one day, one professor told me some things, and then I start to make a reflection. I was like, wow, yeah, we are not just muscles and blood. No, we have something from the neck up that is the big boss, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then it was in 2016, and then I started looking for information about it. So please, that's my story, that's how I start to pay attention on this a little bit, the mental preparation, mental issues. So how today, I know you are a mental preparation expert, right? So how it started, you know what I mean? How did you start this journey?
So my journey is actually not very traditional. So I didn't play the highest levels of the game. I absolutely love soccer and I love all sports. So I was a multi-sport athlete. And what I found is that I may not have been the fastest player. I may not have been the most technical player. I may not have had the best tactical knowledge, which are the things that most coaches are training all the time. Right? Physical, technical, and tactical all the time with drills. They're encouraging us to, do that work at home. But I was really mentally tough, right? Nothing would stop me, right? No one could say no. No one could say you couldn't do it. As soon as that would happen, I wouldn't get overly frustrated. Instead, I would take that frustration and be more motivated. So there was something to this foundation and base that helped me to be a better competitor. I wasn't the most technical. I wasn't the most skilled or physically skilled, but that mental component was so strong for me. And what I'm seeing in my own kids, so I've got two, both played soccer, and their teammates, so that's really where this kind of came about, is that was the weakness, right? Giving up too quickly, not being able to handle pressure. Right? Wanting to, take your frustration out in an unproductive way, having it not motivate you, losing consistency and discipline. But those that were mentally tough, their learning and trajectory was just better and better. So when you look at the highest levels, what's the real difference in college athletes or professional athletes? they weren't at 12 or 13 or 15 necessarily the most skilled, the most physical, the most knowledgeable tactically, but they were the most mentally coachable athletes. And that piece I just became fascinated by. Now, I shared that I didn't come in a linear way to this. So this is actually my second career. My first career was in higher education. I was an administrator, an executive, a leader, and I noticed the same thing there. The people who worked for me that were open to learning, that could handle their emotions in tough situations, that had the confidence that they could learn something new, they could advance, they could handle pressure in the day-to-day executive world, did better. So the same skills that make us productive in sport make us productive in life. And when I did make the career change, and that's its own very long story, but when I did make the career change, what I found is it was really easy to go back to my psychology roots. So I have a doctorate in psychology, and I'm a developmental psychologist, not a sports psychologist. So I look at where are you in your development, right? Your brain development, the way you think, your body development, your social development, your emotional development. And then what's appropriate for your mental preparation for the pressure that you're handling, right? How does it all come together? And so that's the way I approached coming to this field and to serve athletes and coaches and parents. What I find from a broader perspective is that when the mental preparation becomes intentional, when you train it every day, like juggling, like passing against a wall, like going to the gym, like running, like eating the right foods, sleeping well, analyzing games, watching games, going to practices. When you start training the mental side, the confidence, your ability to handle pressure, keeping your emotions productive, when you're able to do that every day and train it, just like you train all the other parts of the game, you become an unstoppable athlete. And that magic, I can't really describe what happens to my athletes, but when it clicks, they just become a whole different athlete. And it is so amazing to watch.
Yeah, it's when you tell this, I have been looking for information. Like I don't have PhD or anything like this, and I was in Portugal doing master's degree, and that's it. But nothing specific in terms of mental issues, preparation, anything like that. But I start to by myself looking for information. I do this at least every week. I try to separate maybe 2 or 3 hours on this subject. And nowadays we know that there is a specific part of the brain. I think the name in English is anterior cingulate cortex. Mm-hmm. And then it's a part of the brain that really grows, not like biceps, of course, but grows a little bit and develop a little bit when you do things, but you have to overcome to do these things. Like you don't want to do something, but and you do it anyway. Like I think this kind of studies and this kind of information, will become the key point, like for the next maybe 10, 15 years in terms of, your expertise to really, because people think that preparation is go to the gym, work out, lift weights, and that's the preparation, but at some point, I believe we have figured out a way to work out and, have some kind of way to reinforce our brain, right? So do you have an experience that maybe after 6 months or 1 year, because it's not overnight, but do you have an experience that after maybe 6 months or 1 year, you saw something different about what you said?
Oh, absolutely. So whether I'm working with a professional athlete, a college athlete, high school, middle school, or even my elementary schoolers. Now, I don't usually train a lot of little guys, right? 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, but I have a few. They're very high level athletes. At least they're showing a lot of potential. And what I find is that there are a few key things that, and I know you said, what happens in 6 months or a year, but some of the things you'll see are immediate. And when you start to see and feel that immediate change, it's a game changer, because what'll happen is you'll train better. You'll push yourself harder in training, so you'll grow faster. So this mental component. So some things that I'm talking about. Oftentimes, let me just maybe talk about emotion, right? So what happens when our body is under stress? Usually it's because we are frustrated. Maybe we're out of our comfort zone. Something doesn't feel right. We didn't get playtime. The coach gave us feedback that was tough to hear. Lots of reasons, right? It could be lots of reasons. Or we didn't sleep well, right? Even just not sleeping well can change how we're perceiving things mentally. So let's say we have an emotion. Let's say in this example, our emotion is being nervous for a tough game, right? We got a big game coming this weekend, and the whole week we're kind of nervous. So even at practice, we want to make sure we show well so that we get play time. So then we play nervous at practice, right? That's a very real thing, whether you're 9 or whether you're playing professional and all the way in between. What happens when you're nervous is your heart rate goes up, right? Your body has a response. And oftentimes when your body is having a response, the mind begins to believe that it's in danger, right? Fight or flight kicks in. And when you're in danger, you're only focused on surviving the danger, not learning, not being creative, not playing free, not being an automatic. Your brain begins to think about all the things that could go wrong, all the things that, maybe are the noise in your head, right? What is the coach going to think? I made a bad pass. Did he see that? Is it going to affect my playtime, right? All the thoughts. But something very simple. If you calm your body down, it'll stop sending signals to the brain that you're in danger. So slow your heart rate down. You can do that lots of ways. I would say the fastest way is your breathing, and it's free. You don't have to buy anything. There's no tool you have to carry around. You just have to notice it. So that's the really important part. You have to notice that this is happening, and then you have to remove it, release it, reverse it. So you take a breath. So oftentimes I get the question of like, what kind of breath, right? You look in the literature, you can box breathe, and you can 6-4-10, and there's lots of different breath patterns. The easiest thing to remember is if you try to slow your heart rate down, your exhale is longer than your inhale. Breathe in, breathe out longer, and your heart rate will come down. When your heart rate comes down, your body stops signaling to the brain that it's in danger. So then you clear the brain a bit, so it's not paying attention to things that are making it, a dangerous environment, a threat. And now you can rise to the challenge of the environment. Notice the pressure of the environment did not change. How you perceive it changes. The environment stayed the same. That's not in your control. The big game is still the big game. The coach's decisions on whether you're going to play or not are still the coach's decisions. None of that changed. But now you can handle it differently. You can think about it with more clarity. And oftentimes, you'll play better when you stop thinking. That switch is sometimes the hardest thing for people to understand. I actually, especially for my highest athletes, right, the most experienced ones, the biggest change that they see in their game is when they learn to stop thinking and just trusting their preparation, trusting their training, and just play. Just compete for the sake of competing. When they can do that, when they can just compete for the love of the game, when they can play an automatic, oftentimes they'll say things like, I hit flow state, I was in the zone, I was locked in, right? That all those words kind of mean the same. Their body goes into automatic. They play free, they play fast, their decisions are quicker, their reflexes are faster because their brain isn't thinking. It's not getting in the way. And so the fastest way to do that is just calm the body down so that it doesn't feel like it's under stress. Now, your question about 6 months, 9 months, that's when we get into things like working on your confidence level. And there's lots of ways to do that. Or working on, making sure that you can stop thinking, understanding the difference between training mindset and competition mindset. So all of these are tools, but it's really important to understand that it's not a program, right? Like I can't say to you, do these things in this order and you are going to magically be super mentally tough. When someone works with me, my job is to understand you as an athlete, the environment inside you and outside you.
Okay, I got you. Yeah. When you say this in terms of, the emotions, right? We have the four basic emotions. It's glad, sad, mad, fear, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe, I don't know, a couple months ago, I looked at CDC data for, I don't want to say the word, but people that give up to live. You know what I mean? And I saw that there's a window between 16 or something like this and 23. This window, 16, 23, the number goes up 1,100% or 1,100%. Let's say like this, 1,100% in this window. And at that point, I was working with high school, players. And I try to understand why this specifically, like more than 1,000% up in this specific age group, 16 to 23. And in my point of view, I would like to, listen to you. In my point of view, is a moment that the teenagers start to be met with the real world, and they start to like a new life. Like I'm now is about to become an adult. I'm 16, 17, but I don't know. That's my, that's what I suspect. But I'd like to hear from you. What is your opinion for this age group that, usually they are leaving high school, going to college, mm-hmm. and at the same time they play, they play in clubs, they play, let's say, last year of high school or first year of college. So how do you see that for this age group, please?
Yeah, so I haven't seen the exact data, so let me just start with that. But as you're describing it, the thoughts that are coming to mind are this 16 to 23, especially for athletes. So if we just narrow it a little bit, this age, at least in America, now I'm not 100% sure about the systems in Europe or other parts of the world, but in America, that's when the recruiting for college begins. A lot of decisions need to be made around this age that determine your next set of years, which is a lot of pressure. And we live in a space where there's a lot of information. We live in a space of a very public self, right? So whether it's social media pressure, right? You're seeing the lives of people in a highlight reel. You're only seeing kind of the best moments that they choose to share. That has added pressure to this next generation that, now I think I'm substantially older than you, but my generation didn't really have, right? We didn't have the internet and social media. So the mistakes we were making, the decisions we were making, the successes we were having were much more narrow and not as public. Now they're living a very public self and needing to make really long-term decisions, high pressure, and lots of transitions. So I suspect that as we think about other generations, this generation and each generation forward is going to have more and more of these issues, especially our athletes. This is when they've spent maybe 10 years at this point, right? If they're 16 or 17, right? They may have started very young playing a particular sport, and now they have to decide whether they're hanging up their cleats. That's a very hard decision. Right? Because there's a little bit of guilt. I've spent all these years, all this time, all the money, the resources, the sacrifices I made not going to my friends' birthday parties or traveling for a tournament or a game, all the things that we give up to be an athlete. And now you may not make it. Like, that's a lot of pressure. What was all that work for? So all of these kinds of questions becomes one that you're wrestling with. Now, if we think just the developmental nature, and yet your brain is still developing. So we're adding a lot of questions and a lot of pressure, but your brain isn't fully formed yet to handle it, to process it, right? That critical thinking, problem solving is still physically developing. That frontal lobe is not done yet. So now we have all these things that we're trying to accomplish, and yet we don't have the body for it yet. So we try to lean on our resources. Well, some of those resources, sometimes parents, sometimes coaches, sometimes friend expectations, add pressure instead of provide support. And I don't mean that they want to add pressure. Sometimes we don't even know we're adding pressure as parents. But this 16 to 22, 23, there's a lot of questions that we end up having to answer at that age. Even the 22-year-old, right? Because they're now leaving college if they decided to go. And if they didn't decide to go, they might be trying to live on their own, trying to move away from home base. That's huge, right? To become independent so quickly. So I, like you, think that there's a lot of environmental components too, without the brain capacity yet. That adds a lot of pressure.
Yeah, you know, I don't know how do you see that, but of course I don't have this experience so specifically, but by my reading, I saw that women, they suffer much more in terms of mental issues, but the number of men that give up, they quit, is like 3-4 times the number of women. So by your experience, it's harder to prepare mentally the boys or the girls? How do you see that?
So I love that piece of data and that gender difference that you're pointing out, because we see that kind of pattern in lots of different places in research, not just in the mental health space. But if you really consider who is going to ask for support, there is a social component. It is much more acceptable for a female to ask for help than for a male to ask for help in most cultures. And so when we report that females have, higher percentages of mental health issues or higher needs for mental health, what we're forgetting is maybe it's not the need, maybe they're reporting it more. Because as you pointed out, there's other symptoms of giving up and other things. Well, if the women are needing support, getting support, and pushing through, it's not necessarily because we're stronger. We asked for help. So sure, it looks like we need more help, but it's because we asked for it. And so the longer term outcomes are better for us. And so I just want to kind of caution people as they read stats, look at stats, is ask yourself, what are we not seeing in the information that could be possible? Because the information itself could be incomplete. Now, I'm not saying all societies and all cultures have that gender divide, but many do. Good thing is, the newer generation, that gender divide of asking for help is starting to go away. More athletes are coming out post World Cup, right? We're seeing a lot of things on social media. More high-level athletes that just got all of this attention are coming out and saying, ahead of the World Cup, I saw a mental performance coach. I saw a sports psychologist. I came mentally prepared. Right? We saw that after the Olympics too, right? We saw also in lots of different sports of the Olympics come out and say, I was able to do this at the highest level because I trained the mind and I got extra support. More people are talking about, I mean, you are even sharing your platform to get this information out there. This is not a weakness. It's a strength to train. Just like we would train our muscles, just like we would pay attention to what we're eating, just like we want to be healthy for ourselves and for the people around us. It's just one other element that we're trying to keep healthy. And I think the more we can normalize it, there's nothing wrong with us. We're just getting extra support, right? Just like any athlete that has any other coach. The coaching I do isn't different. It's a different specialty, but I'm still a coach, right? So, today I was working with teams on a sideline. I look like a coach. I dress like a coach. I talk like a coach. I'm on the sideline like a coach. But I pay attention to your confidence and your body language and how you recover from your mistakes, how quickly you recover, what you do when you're not in the game. The other coaches are paying attention to how you touch the ball with your foot, how you move off the ball, set plays, right? The speed of it, how explosive your speed is, positioning. We're both coaching the same player and the same game. We just get to pay attention to different things. And I think the more we normalize that, and that's why I love, so the other part that I do, I don't just train athletes, I also train coaches. So what I believe is you don't have to be, a PhD or a certified mental performance coach to coach the middle, right? You might need that extra specialty to coach kids that are on either side of what we need, right? Maybe they've taken something too far, or maybe they're not motivated enough, right? That the edges need us as specialized people. They do. But a lot of people that get referred to me, sometimes I think, if I train the coach, that athlete wouldn't need me. So I've started training coaches now. They're just like you, right? There's basic information that if you just had and you designed the environment to help them practice these skills, then they would have everyday times and places to practice. And it's not that you don't want to, right? Almost every coach that I've talked, actually, I would say every coach that I've talked to in any sport, baseball, track, swimming, volleyball, soccer, football, we can name them all, right? Every single one believes that the mental part is important to train. Not one person has said, no, they don't need that. No, they do need it. But in a lot of the certifications that come, it's only talked about if they say the psychological part is important, but they don't tell you how to design an environment that helps you train it. But yet they tell you tactical things to do in a drill that translates to a game. And so the coaching that I provide is to do that. I give you a playbook to put into your existing training so that you can just train it just like you do all the other parts of the game. I really believe that an athlete doesn't have to come to me. Your athletes can get this from you. And how amazing would it be if 100% of our athletes could train it? Just naturally in their environments without spending more money on somebody who's specialized. And I know if I do this really well, I won't have a job. I won't have a business if I do this really well. But I'd rather have a world of really productive people in sport, because what happens when they stop playing sports? All the lessons on the mental part of the game is what they carry into their next phase. The confidence, the leadership, the communication, being able to recover from mistakes. You just take that into your professional life, into your home life, your relationships, how you handle your kids, right? Coming back with positive and productive emotions. These are amazing life skills. That's what I wish for everyone. So I just think every coach should have the tools, and then anybody who needs extra should come to someone like me.
Yeah, I understand what you say. I'm a former military guy, and I remember during my years in the army, they teach you to be comfortable inside an uncomfortable situation, because at that time I didn't know that, but today I know that you have limbic system, and you have the prefrontal cortex, as you said, and they are fighting, reason and emotion, who is gonna win when you make your decision. So I think for coach, the biggest challenge is don't get involved in the game. Try to be away from the emotion of the game, even if you have 75,000 people on the seats screaming. Sometimes here in the United States, not too much, but in Brazil, they are literally screaming a lot of bad things about you and your family,
Yes.
all these things, and you have to stay away from that, be reasonable, and use your prefrontal cortex, know your, amygdala, not your amygdala. So I think this is the biggest challenge for a coach. And also, I don't know if you have an experience with that, but sometimes as a coach, when you are trying to stay away from the emotions of the game, people say that you are not involved enough. You have to, you know what I mean? Like I heard from parents, you are too calm, you are too quiet, you don't encourage the kids. So if you try to stay away from emotions and be reasonable in your decisions, people want to see you screaming, screaming, and screaming. So means now you are working because you're screaming, screaming. You know what I mean?
I do. So I was asked this question in my training this past weekend. So the sessions that I'm running with coaches right now are on Sunday nights in US time. And somebody asked me that exact question. Like, when as a coach, if I regulate my emotions, model what I want to see out of my athletes, right? Calm, focused, like disciplined in the game, bringing the right amount of intensity. As a coach, you want to model that because it's contagious. If you get heated, they will get heated. If you stay focused and calm in your job, they will stay focused and calm in their jobs. Right? Coaching is such a huge responsibility. And in the moment, we need to model it. This is where I think, especially when we're working with youth athletes, where parents have a say, right? When we're working in the professional space, we don't really worry about parents, right? Like if a professional athlete's parents are coming to you. I mean, unless they're young, which we have some young professionals. I understand that. That's different. But the communication and partnership with a parent is huge. Parents are a very important part of a team. And oftentimes I hear coaches gently or not so gently complain about the parents. And sometimes they even quit coaching because of the parents. And I want to challenge that thinking to say, look, our kids, right, I have two, and I was one of those parents. Let me just first say, if someone is listening and you know me and you're like, but I used to hear you screaming on the sideline, you are right. I was one of those parents. So I can say this from experience that we forget our role on the team too. Our role is to help make our athletes better. It's not to get wrapped up in a win or a loss, to live through them. I mean, we had our chance, right? We were 12 once. Now our 12-year-old is playing. Should they be playing because of me or through me, despite me? Or should I be supporting a journey that makes them a better human through sport? Competitive, yes. Don't lower your standards, don't lower your expectations, but understand your role. So when I coach parents or do workshops for parents, that simple reminder, right? Just gut check. Is my response helping my athlete perform productively, learn, and grow? And then that same question I should ask before I approach a coach about how they're doing it. Is the coach's behavior and style helping my athlete be productive and learn and grow? If the answer is yes, you've accomplished what you wanted. They are developing, learning, and growing. If the answer is no, look at yourself first. Ask yourself, what does my child need from this environment? And how can I make an adjustment first before I expect someone else to make an adjustment? Because if, as a parent, you're standing on the sideline yelling and screaming at the referee, at the kids, at the other parents, and then you want the coach to also be yelling and screaming, like, who's really the problem? Right? And I know that's harsh to say. But I think sometimes we need to be real about the point of sport. In the US, and I can't speak across the world, but in the US, 95% of our youth athletes will not play college or higher. 95%. They'll play high school, right? So 95% of our high school athletes won't play the next level. That's even if they get to high school. So some of them quit before. But 95% who get to the high school level won't play more. So if I have a kid out there, where would I place my money? They're going to play more or not play more? Are they in the 5% or are they not? But how much have they learned through the game that's going to carry forward? That question will change how you parent. Did they grow in their confidence? Did they learn to become a leader? Did they learn to be coachable? Right? Because when you go to a new job, someone is going to coach you or supervise you. Right? Could you handle pressure? Or did I add so much pressure that every time now there's a little bit of stress, they crumble? Do they love the game? You don't have to play the game to be a part of the game. Right? The World Cup is an amazing example of that, right? We just, in the US, Canada, and Mexico just hosted it. How many people that I came across in different environments, right? Restaurants, talking in parks, like about a game, asking really simple questions about like the basics of a game because they'd never played. but I could still love the game and never have played at a high level. I can be a part of sport without having gone to college and played sports. And if we kill the love of the game, what have we really accomplished? And so it's these questions that honestly will make us better parents and coaches. Because even as a coach, we have to realize that 5% of them are going on from high school, which means your job is to help the 95% get the most out of that environment, the most enjoyment, the most character development, the most emotion regulation, the most confidence, the life lessons that you can teach them. The US Soccer Foundation has launched a campaign here about being a coach mentor. I love that model because that's a forever model. I may not actively be your coach, but I can forever be your mentor. It's lovely. It's a fantastic model that they've launched.
Okay, all right. You said about high level, right? And I just remember I forgot her name, but she's I believe top 3 or maybe she's number 1 in the world to play tennis.
Okay.
And she got a hard time, I believe maybe 2 months ago, something like this.
Are you talking about Sabalenka?
Exactly, yeah. So when I saw that, and then I started looking for some information, try to remind things that I have been reading. The brain will be done around 27 years old, 30 years old, right? And like also some articles talk about grit, that is as an athlete, soccer player, even when everything goes wrong, you don't lose your focus, right? Yeah. You have your focus, you have your strategy, your tactics, or you cannot lose your focus, even doesn't matter what. So, and then I saw her, she's top of the top. She's number 1, maybe number 2. So, and I saw her mind completely broken. Like, in my opinion, the only thing we saw there was her body, because her mind completely done. And I was thinking about her coach. You know what I mean? Like, what could be the approach when you see your player fall like that, so bad, so like. And also another guy is a male player. I think he's from Spain. They caught him on camera say, I don't want to play anymore, I want to go home. So I don't know, because tennis usually is 1v1, so you by yourself, you know what I mean? But soccer, maybe today I'm not in a good day, but because you are a team, you guys help me, tomorrow I'm gonna be better, you know what I mean? Like, it's a team. But tennis is 1v1. So if you're not in a good day, there is no one to help you there. The ball's moving. So how do you see this situation with a so high level player with this broken mind to say, like the guy, I want to go home in the middle of the game, professional, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
what do you think about it?
So for me, I think it reinforces that they're human. We're not robots. Just because we've mastered something doesn't mean on a given day the factors won't be different. And we need to remember that even at the highest levels, we can have these thoughts and emotions. Having them isn't the issue. What we do with it shows our mental strength. It is human to doubt ourselves. It is human to want to stop. The mental toughness comes, and all that training comes with what do we do with it? Do we push through when things get hard, even when we're going to lose? Right? That's beautiful. That's actually very tough to do. Even if we're telling ourselves we want to quit and we don't. The reality is, at any point in time, any of them can walk away. Nobody's holding them there. Nothing's happening. Sure, there'll be consequences. Okay. I mean, Simone Biles, in the middle of the Olympics, didn't compete. Literally walked away. She did not compete. And she was very open with why that happened. Mentally, she wasn't there. And for what she needed to accomplish without the mental component, it became physically dangerous. And she made a choice. Did it have consequences? Yes, absolutely it did. Natural consequences are everywhere. Good consequences, bad consequences. The question then is what do you do with it? So whether you walk away, don't walk away, whether you have the thought, don't have the thought, the next, it's almost like in soccer, right? The next ball matters, the next touch. Your first touch has value, of course. It'll determine, but the second touch is really, really important. The second action is really important. Same idea. Lots of things could happen and that first thought will come. But what do you do with it? So I think that these moments that we get to see at the highest levels helps us understand that what we go through at these other levels, just because we get higher level, doesn't mean this will go away. We just get better at managing it. And that better at managing requires practice. It requires reflection. It's not going to happen automatically. You're not born with it or not born with it. Like, there's no gene for it. This is trained. This is your choice. Just like you can train your touch or you can train your swing. And you're right, individual athletes have a different kind of pressure. Swimming, track. Just think about those that are running the 100-meter. You could train 4 years for 10-second race. And in the moments before that 10-second race, those end up being your most important moments. After 4 years of training, right? It's a different way to look at that moment. Their brains are not broken. They're just human. But she pushed through, knowing that she was going to lose. Isn't that stronger?
Sure, yeah, it's I think for some coaches, especially for these kind of sports that, like you said, 100 meters, you don't have time to even have, if you think about something, it's over, it's done. You don't have time. Yeah. So one more question, please. I have been reading about ACL for women in a soccer environment in Brazil. Now we have a lot of issues about it because the number is too high. Is really, if you compare with the male, female, the number is too high. I was thinking about, some people say, no, just the knee. The knee doesn't have anything to do with the mind. But we know that women, like a man, your cycle is everyday cycle. Your testosterone, 9 a.m. is one level, 9 p.m. is down. That's your cycle. But once you deal with women, it's different. You have 4 women inside one woman, you know what I mean? Yes. Like, it's 4 weeks that maybe for some women is a little bit better, but for some it's terrible, Mm-hmm. And what's your opinion in terms of the mental issue in this situation, that maybe at some point, because the way they eat, the way they rest, you know, it's all linked. How do you feel? How do you eat? How do you sleep? And then your recover can be better or worse for your knee. You know what I mean? Because the pressure is too high on the knee. So what's your opinion about it for so many, you know, even young girls like 14, 15, they are having ACL problems. What's your opinion, please?
Yeah, we see the same pattern in the US. So I just want to kind of share that this is a worldwide thing. This is not specific to Brazil. I know the numbers are, you know, high there as well. And it's not just a single sport. So we're seeing it across sport. So as you suspect, there needs to be more work on understanding this. I think in general, research on women has been limited worldwide. Right? A lot of studies are done on men, and then we assume that women are the same. We know that that is not true. But yet we train female athletes like we train male athletes. And I think what's happening now with the research funded in the UK, right? So they're taking professional players there, they're studying lots of different things, including their cycles, but also including how they're training. And now studies in the US as well to kind of shift women's sports to be designed for women to optimize the ways in which not only their body moves, but how they need to train to optimize it. So I'm not going to necessarily comment on like the biology of things, because I think you're right. You've summarized what we know so far very, very well, right? And the hormone component can't be ignored. Now, some people would say, unfortunately, I think from a lack of knowledge, that it's an excuse. And the more we think about it as an excuse not to train or an excuse to train differently, the more it reveals how much education is still needed. We as women, so I'm also a female athlete, right? So we as women are not training within the cycle or despite the cycle, right? There are ways to maximize using the information you have about how your body is on any particular day or any particular week. And as long as you're in tune and reflective with that, you can have control on how you train, right? How you nourish, just like you said, how you nourish your body, fuel it, how you rest it, how you recover it, how you maybe focus on strength training at 100% and maybe at 50%, whether you're, training in the environment, whatever sport that is, at 25% or at 100%, and trusting that that training plan over time is appropriate. And the other thing is we need to allow especially at the higher levels, right? So the younger levels, I would say it's more about education, right? Having them have the ability and the freedom to take ownership of their training intensity. A lot of time coaches will say things like, don't be lazy. You can push harder, right? How do you know? How do you know they can push harder that day? Maybe they just started a part of their cycle that they're not comfortable sharing with you. I mean, I have literally watched soccer coaches with teenage girls, young teenage girls, forcing them to learn to chest the ball. I'll be honest, it hurts, especially in the early years. If you watch any World Cup, male or female, how many times do you chest the ball? Why do you need to practice that at every practice? Why? Why don't you just move your body back, bring it down with your feet with an amazing touch? Why does it have to be part of existing training? So when I see coaches doing some of these things, I don't think there's anything wrong with the coach, right? Because they want to do what's right for their athlete. So I would just share that we need to talk about it more. We need to educate more. We need to make the information. We need to help coaches be curious. Give them a little extra time to learn. If you're a club director and you're listening to this, add it into the information they get, right? Send an extra email. Your curious coaches will open it. And not 50 messages, just one at a time. they're busy too. A lot of them have other jobs, right? A lot of coaches is not their full-time job. They give back to the game because they love it. And yet we demand so much out of our coaches. So let's give a little grace. Let's understand that coaches are evolving too. They're learning too. And I love that you're curious, right? That curiosity is what keeps you a good coach. So I would just encourage coaches, parents, athletes, be curious. If a question comes to mind, why is this like this? I mean, we have computers in our hand with our smartphones. Just Google it. Start there. Ask ChatGPT. I know not everybody likes AI, but start somewhere and then verify. There's so much great information out there. And I think you've done such an amazing job with this platform, but also just being personally curious about these topics to do the good research. And I just commend you, applaud you. You are such a good role model for coaches and athletic directors and anybody trying to mentor young ones, but also making themselves better coaches. So thank you for modeling that for all of us.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's, I used to, even during my military days, to deal with women and sports. And of course, you can see you have difference. And like today, we know a little bit about the hypothalamus. That, the female is, let's say, a little bit more or a little bit less patient, than male hypothalamus. The connections more vertical with men, and women is more like left and right, when they want to do connections. It's different. And I know our time is almost done. I would like to ask you my last question. I try to put myself in a woman's mind, but of course you can tell much better than me. What I imagine is some players, women's soccer players, they don't wanna look like weak, and even they are not 100% for maybe the week of the month. They have 4 different weeks, but I think, or I believe, like before you have an ACL problem, they start to feel something, but they don't say anything because they will say I'm weak. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm explaining you well, but I try to put my mind, like if I were the coach, I would try my best to make sure she understands that I will listen to her. You know what I mean? Like, don't try look like tough. You are a human being. I know you have 4 weeks. Easy, calm down. Because once you have an ACL problem, maybe for some players it's over. You know what I mean? They will never be the same anymore. So what is your opinion in terms of women's player that they feel like if they show a little bit of something different, people look at her like you are weak. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I don't want to speak for all athletes. Obviously, no one woman can speak for all women, and no one athlete can speak for all athletes. So I'll speak from my personal experience is as a woman, whether it be in sport or as an executive, I did feel the pressure of needing to do more to show my value. That's me personally. There might be others that have that same experience. But the more I've been coaching male athletes, the more I understand that it's not just a female phenomenon. There are plenty of male athletes who hide injuries and they push through because they want to stay, they want to keep their image. They want to be tough. They don't want to lose their spot. That at least the male athletes that I work with, again, no one athlete can represent all athletes. So again, same caveat for the ones that I train. But it's not so uncommon. Now, yes, have we over history, right? Females have broken into the sport, but in the US, I love our men's team. They did a great job this World Cup, but our women's team has always won, right? Like, if you really think about it, in the soccer world, in the US, the expectation is we're going to win and we're going to be strong. And it's the men who are catching up. So for the US, it's a little bit reversed in terms of soccer as a sport. But generally, I think there is this pressure to keep an image or to keep a spot that both genders deal with, and we mask in different ways. Right? As males, we may not talk about our injuries. We may not tell our coaches. We may push through. Then we have injuries longer or then get a massive injury. On the female side, we push through, whether it's our cycles, again, also injuries, until then it's too late. And I do think this is a phenomenon on both sides. So as coaches are designing environments, creating cultures, I would encourage you that this isn't just for the females to create a culture that people feel safe to share with you. Do it for all athletes, regardless of gender, and quite frankly, regardless of age, right? Build those habits young, continue those habits even as they compete. I'm not saying lower your standards. Keep your high standards, but create a culture that allows communication. And then you can decide what to do together instead of the athlete just deciding and doing it on their own and feeling alone. So that's what I would encourage with that question. But again, I think your instincts are really good. Clearly, you've done a lot of research, and I think you're such an amazing role model. And thank you for this platform.
Okay, thank you so much. I thank you. I appreciate. Thank you for your willingness, your kindness, your time to be here, teaching a little bit about mental preparation, mental issues, frustrations, all these things. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I look forward to our future conversations.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a great day. Okay, thank you.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.